I've crossed paths with so many people in my career, a lot of them in passing. It's easy to feel a connection with someone and intend to follow up, but never get around to it. I don't know about you, but it seems to me that it takes so much more time and effort to sustain friendships than when I was younger. But sometimes fate provides a second chance, and that's exactly what I had with today's guest, Hadi Salehi. He and I at one point were teaching at the Art Center College of Design, and though we were familiar with each other, we never had a proper sit-down. But because of a reintroduction through a mutual friend, I had the chance to sit down and learn about Hadi's fascinating story as an immigrant and an artist. Hadi uses photography in a variety of different ways, including using different film development processes, distressing and even writing on his negatives and prints. He doesn't allow the limitations of his medium to define his work, because he wants to do so much more than simply distract you for a few seconds.
And also, if you look at when you go to the gallery, sometimes watch people, especially photo gallery, people stay in your images maybe 1 second, 2 seconds, they just pass by, they don't look at. I said, I have to change this one. I want to make you to stay a little bit longer on my image. You get it, not to get it, but that staying longer in one image to next image is just a goal for me, because I do believe on that little bit longer fraction of the second, your brain gonna see other things, and they keep looking, and complete. The people coming asking me, what do you write? It really doesn't matter. That's like I'm playing with you. I want you to stay a little bit longer on my image. I work very hard for this one. It doesn't matter. It's a broken narrative. What do you want to know?
For decades, he earned his living as an educator, but he has always been creating. When I visited his downtown studio, there was an abundance of work, each reflecting a different aspect and period in his creative life. His dedication and passion exist in every inch of that space and informs all he does today as his work makes its way into the world of fine art.
I do really trust myself. I think I don't want to look like Irving Penn. I don't want to look like all those big cats. I want to be just myself. As an artist, if I don't sell it, I'm so happy making it. I can't describe you how joyful it is to making it. That you can put the price on it. If they like it, they buy it. If they don't like it, I like to have it. I have that attitude, and I work hard to become in this one. I don't compromise this. When I was working for Gotcha in 90s, they said, we like Craig Gorman. Can you do that? I said, no, go hire Craig Gorman.
We'll talk to Hadi about his life growing up in Iran with a parent who was an addict, and what it was like for him to adapt to living in the U.S. during the Iranian Revolution. This is Ibarionex, and welcome back to The Candid Frame. Hadi, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Really looking forward to a chance to talk with you. We've crossed paths because we were both teaching at Art Center, but we never, if we had any sort of conversation, it was pretty cursory. So thanks to Steve Lavoie for putting us together.
Thank you, Steve.
And reading about you and looking at your work, it's really, really fascinating. So many of the photographers that I've interviewed over the last 14 years, they're always often known for sort of a singular piece of work. And with you taking a look at it, it seems like I could imagine you being 4 or 5 different people, because you explore the medium in such different ways. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you more about that. But I want to start with your upbringing in Iran. Tell me about where exactly in Iran did you grow up? Tell me about your parents.
I was first child of my mother, but like a 6th, 7th child of my dad, because my dad had 3 times before marrying my mom, had 3 different wives and with the children. My dad is from Tehran, and my mother is from Shahsavar, which is the city north of Iran by the Caspian Sea. So I grew up in the landscape of the orange groves and the rice field. My dad was an orange grower who sold oranges, and mom was a slave of my dad. Because of the sexism in Iran at the time, it still exists. And she had to work inside the house as a housewife. And he also was an opium addict.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and one of my primary job every morning, which I still remember it, was getting up early and getting things ready for him when he gets up and prays, then had to spliff or smoke his opium, then go to work. He wasn't lazy. He was the most hard-working, sweet man, very disciplinary, and wants us to get educated. Didn't want us to be like him. So I studied, he pushed me to study mathematics because it would open up more avenue for you to make money. But I was fascinated by literatures, and Iranians have amazing, rich literatures of the stories and poetry. So it was so funny. I was a math major, but my literatures, the other part of the not related to math always was higher than my mathematics. Then I graduated high school from Tehran, Babakan University. In Iran, in order to get to university that days, you had to take a big test to go, because university would accept, for example, 10,000 and 1 million students would apply to get in. And I tried it once, couldn't make it. So I went to army because, during the Shah's time, you had to go to the army. But Shah had a program which would, after 6 months of the practicing as army, and you would train, became a teacher, and would go to the places with a population of like maybe 100 people, because, of the situation at the time. And I went taught in border of Iran and Russia, which is Azerbaijan now. Those days was Russia. And I taught for 18 months, and I loved it. I asked them if I can stay one more year. And I was there for one more year, and then I came back and took the test, and I got in Tehran University in education program.
I want to go back to your parents.
Okay.
You mentioned your dad, but while you were giving me a tour of your space and asked about your mother, you noted that your mom is your hero.
Yes.
And when you were growing up with your mom and your dad, you said that your mom was sort of restricted, very limited in terms of what she could do. But
yes.
Did you have any sense of what she might have dreamed for herself? Had she been able to have the freedom to be able to do that? Did she ever talk to you in terms of what she would have loved to have done?
Not that much.
No?
But she always told me, make sure you get your education. That's all she could tell me that. And always told me that don't do whatever your dad does.
By which she meant the drug.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, also at the time, history of the opium in the world, war of opium in China, in Hong Kong, and it was English propaganda. My dad said when he was young, the English people would come out and tell him, hey, do you want opium? My dad says, yeah, I want opium. He says, but you have to give, after you spliff the opium, there is some resin over there. And they would say, but you got to give those resin to me back. So that says a lot of houses, people were spliffing and then giving that resin to the Englishman. Actually, that was a propaganda of making them addicted. It's a history of brutality,
Yeah.
It was a custom, sort of like Afghanistan, it was, the old man had to smoke opium, it was just part of, mom never liked it.
Yeah.
And always told me after I would make things ready for her, she would come out and says, out.
Yeah, because you were preparing that for your dad.
Yeah, it's a process. It's really a crisis. And sometimes he would wake you up at like 5 a.m. Don't forget my fire.
And there's a certain smell to that, isn't there? Very strong scent.
She would grab us and run away from the scene. And then always she said, don't do that. Your dad is sick. He needs to do that.
Did you find yourself feeling angry and resentful towards your dad for having to do that?
Yes, I did. But not that much control from me to do that. But I never told anybody. Now I'm holding and exposing that one. Those days I couldn't tell my classmate, hey, my dad is sniffing opium. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, I can imagine how difficult that would have been as a kid. Families always have their secrets, and even as a kid, you know certain things you don't.
Certain things
you
can't. You're gonna expose it to the different places, you know. But also, it was really good. I have a brother 1 year older than me, and he was pretty smart. He still is. He says, every time my dad was high, he says, okay, let's go ask for money. I said, what? You're going to beat us? He says, no. He's in a good mood. And he would get money. And we had to share whatever we had.
Well, as you mentioned, in Iran, in that part of the world, it is so rich with music, poetry, literature. Was that part and parcel of the education being introduced to that world? Because here in the States, especially now, what you learn in schools is completely separate in terms of any sort of awareness of the arts, other than what is commercially available on TV, movies, radio stations, on the computer. Paint a picture for me in Iran in terms of how the culture, in terms of music, poetry, literature, became part of your upbringing.
I think they were mostly amusing for the kid my age at that time, because nothing else was going on. And you had to read, and you have to make yourself useful at the time, because the summertime there was no school, so reading was big. And also cinema. I loved the idea of the storytelling for the cinema, and the Indian movies was big and cheap.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, you could see 2-3 movies like a week for very less money than, when you go to see American movies. That was probably fat with a PhD, that reading is essential. Especially I had a neighbor, and he would give he was 2-3 years older than me. Every time he would finish his book, he would come knock my doors. So read this one. It's really fantastic. And sort of like hanging out with the people are the same way of thinking you have. The other kids, I was fortunate. I was from like a middle class family, so I could buy books and read. A lot of kids my age, they had to go during the summertime. They had to help their parents for the rice field, because they were all rice grower. They had other things to do rather me. My dad was, he was a lower middle class, so he would provide us would buy books for us. And I think it was mostly part of the parents' strategy to keep you at home, not to go in the street.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And my brother never liked reading, but I was the one I just fascinated by the going through it and see what's the life is about. These stories are done.
And were the stories by mostly writers from Iran, or were they just from anything and everything?
To tell you the truth, if you look at the 60s and 70s, communism, Russians were very, very, very smart. You could buy like a Hemingway for like a 50 cents, but you could buy Chekhov or the other Russians writers for like a 10 cents.
Okay.
You know how the propaganda. Luckily, they were amazing writers. Yeah,
a few of those Russians knew how to write.
They were amazing writers. And eventually, when you grow up, your taste changes, and you change I still love Chekhov because his stories was like street people. he taught the street is a university, free university. You can learn a lot of the people's behavior, how they functions, how they're.
So tell me about, you came here to the United States at the point between the fall of the Shah and the revolution. Tell me about that time, because that's a very tumultuous time, whether you were there or whether you were back here, because it had an impact on so many people. But for you had come here as a student, so you were here on a student visa. Was that right?
Shah had the idea called the Open University, which it would get the TV to the small cities. The people couldn't come get education actually get inside the university, and you would look at their program. They would air from Iran in Channel 3. Then after each 3 months, they would come back to Tehran and would take a test. And actually, you would get your degree from there. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. And I was part of the group of the people because I was studying education and library science in Tehran University. So they picked me up to come here to become producer. So I can go back, produce different lectures for the students. So they can get education, But I got here September 4. By November, America decided to get rid of Shah. Mm-hmm. And we stayed here. It was then Reagan took over. It was a really tough time, And a lot of students at the time, Iranian students, then they took the hostages. It became really chaos. Yeah. We had to go, I was at Pasadena City College. We had to go every Friday. City would provide a principal and all Iranian students on the bus to immigration office. They would check us out. Do we have I-94 visa, student visa, or we don't have it? They deported a lot of people. But tell you the truth, the first day they took me over there was a lady, and she looked at me and went all the way at the end of the line, came back and to the principal, don't bring him in here anymore. So that was my key. And the Pasadena City College had the amazing teacher and photography program. His name was, the guy, I loved him, still do, was Michael Mems. He was, I like to call him black people, because I love the word of the black, And he looked at me, and Mike says, now you know how we suffered centuries in this country. And every weekend he and his wife would take me to the beach. They sort of took care of me and put me on their shelters, and we're looking, nobody is going to do something to this Iranian guy. Those days we weren't Iranian, we were Iranian. Yeah. And I always would say, I didn't run, I had it was ugly.
Yeah, I can only imagine what it must have been like, especially a young kid, away from your family.
Yeah.
On your own for the most part, and all of a sudden you're just, the nature of politics in the world just suddenly transform your world in terms of the hostility that could be directed towards you, and just the unpredictability of just whether or not you could stay here in the first place. So.
Yeah, that's really dark time, which you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
So did photography at that time sort of help you have a means of sort of not only creativity, but a means of escape from all the tensions at the time? How so?
That was, after that, I would go downtown LA on a Broadway. I loved the Broadway because I could get mixed with other Mexicans over there because I'm a brown man. And it was so comfortable, hola. Mm-hmm. Just like you feel like you're among your own people, it was safe. So I did a lot of street photography. I shot from beginning. For some reason, I loved this street art, how these things would paint them and they would go up there and watching them, I liked that one. I was looking forward to get more time to go there in downtown LA and be comfortable. That's the only place I found my temple.
And for me, and you can tell me, because one of the things I'm I'm trying to understand your process here in talking with you. And for me, the thing that I enjoy about street photography is the nature, one, of the unpredictability of the street, but tapping into the natural rhythm of the street? Because for me, I think that life, and especially on the street, has a rhythm to it.
Yes.
And that if you are able to get in sync with it, you can not only see different things sort of coming together, but at some point you can sense the potential of something that could come together. And then when you recognize it, when you're able to capture it, it's not the fact that you photographed something, but that you were able to get into a space where you could feel the moment, not just see it. And I think people who shoot along those lines get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious as to whether, is that what your experience was in the street, or was it some variation of that?
It would definitely help me out to make that decisive moment. Am I going to click it or I'm not going to click it? And the rhythm of the street will take you there. As you look and you look, you have a choice to shoot it or not to shoot it. You just keep moving on and going up and down. And always were interested to show a weak side of the society, the things... It needs to be improved, As a young photographer, I always loved it, Of the mise en scène, you are photographing the man and the woman sitting and selling tortilla or selling oranges, and their looks are unhappy. They don't want to be here, and you say, God, what the energy for like a box of oranges, a human being sitting behind it and trying to sell it, or looking at the wandering people, And Los Angeles, the beauty of Los Angeles is that you can walk like maybe 5-10 blocks and get another community. Oh, that's a Korean town. These are looking different and they behave different. They are not selling oranges in the street,
Mm-hmm. Well, street photography is fairly, quote unquote, straightforward. You're documenting something that's in front of you, and if you're able to capture that quintessential moment, you feel good. You've accomplished something. But you've gone far beyond that, and your work is known for the fact that you're not into just making the image for image sake. That for you, that is merely the starting point from which you explore the image further in terms of the manipulation of the negative or the print or the combination of different photographs. Where did you start thinking, or what was the inspiration for taking that step?
Always want to do film, but I could only afford to do photography. But it's very hard to tell a story in two-dimensional space, That's why I'm adding other elements, I always thought, this one needs something else. I should do this one, not should do that one. I would create the idea of what I'm going to do, and I sleep with it. Then I come back and do different things, And as I told you, I love imperfections in analog photography because sometimes creates beauty in it. But just staying with one subject and looking one image eventually will take you different places, Like if you look at your back, the image over there, it's just the light leaking. I had to put after my exposure, I have to carry on like 100 feet to go to the machine and get it processed. If there is a hole in the back, by the time you come through the light to go to the darkroom to load it, that hole creates some other things on it.
Right.
First, you don't know it. You get, then you see, wow, this looks good. For that image behind you, you have to, if you want to do it digital, you have to write really good program to do that. Mm-hmm. I think mostly the accident and vulnerability of the medium of the analog photography made me to just keep moving and thinking what I can do with this one I have. Am I going to get it more expanded? Yeah. I'm taking it. It's just constant agitation, constant developing on that one, going from here to there, then.
That's really interesting, your comparison to film, because with film, if you put a picture of a person's footage of a person smiling, and you cut it with a film of a dog or a piece of ice cream or something like that, and then you take that same person but have them frowning, and you put the same images and you cut to those same images, the reaction of the audience is going to be completely different because of that juxtaposition. That one image in one piece of film with another piece of film, and the emotion will completely transform how people think they are supposed to experience or how they naturally experience the scene. And I think that for you, that's sort of what you're trying to do with a two-dimensional fixed image, is that you're trying to elicit the same sort of emotional, visceral experience by juxtaposing all these different elements.
That's correct.
And seeing what more you can get from just the one image. Is that?
Yeah, this is completely true. I mean,
okay.
I love that way. And also, if you look at when you go to the gallery, sometimes watch people, especially photo gallery, people stay in your images maybe 1 second, 2 seconds, they just pass by, they don't look at. I said, I have to change this one. I want to make you to stay a little bit longer on my image. You get it, not to get it, but that staying longer in one image to next image is just a goal for me, because I do believe on that little bit longer fraction of the second, your brain gonna see other things, and they keep looking, and the people coming asking me, what do you write? It really doesn't matter. Yeah. That's like I'm playing with you. I want you to stay a little bit longer on my image. I work very hard for this one. It doesn't matter. It's a broken narrative. What do you want to know? Yeah. Seriously. If tell you the truth, on my last show, which was Sunday, I had 2 images, and 5 people asked me, what are you writing? I told the 5 people 5 different stories. Mm-hmm. Because to me, it doesn't matter really what I'm telling you. Yeah. Whether, it's just like drawing your attention and giving different dimension to two-dimensional storytelling.
It's fascinating, because anyone who reads Farsi will take a look at it and just go, it's nothing. It's just words.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Part of what I like about the work is the fact that you were suggesting to people that don't rely on what I intended for the work.
Thank you.
Make it your own. Experience it in whatever way that you want to experience it, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, but part of being able to do that as an artist is trusting yourself, right?
Yes.
Because some people will go on a piece of work and they want the same goal. They want people to linger on their work, but some people are they can be very sort of a controlling and exacting, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, it has to be sort of perfect because I want this sort of experience, and it doesn't seem like that's where you're coming from. That there's a sort of intuitiveness and naturalness that comes to it, but it's hard to get there because photography is such a technical practice, right?
Yes.
And part of it is, as an artist, it's just being able to surrender and just let it go and not always feeling like you're in control. And when you're young, that idea is completely antithetical. It doesn't make sense that at some point you have to sort of just let go, and you don't have to have your hands around the neck of your work. So tell me about you being able to make that kind of transition as a young photographer and a young artist. Did it come easy for you?
It was easy. As you know, studying at the Art Center with those teachers from the after World War II training, like Archie Frante, Szynski, Mr. Ken, and these people, if things wasn't a certain way, they wouldn't accept it, I had a hard time with them, That's why they called me Kaminsky. They always had this Kaminsky. I don't know who Kaminsky was, because they didn't like avant-garde, or they thought photography is just here. Light comes from left, and the camera looks at them, and then you get to get the background light. You get to print and bright. Your black has to be this way. Your white has to be. I went through that training and learned it, and I thought it's boring. Because sometimes you print, it's just different mood you are. Look at this planet Earth is constant changing. Why not us? So that coming out of the norm and becoming something else became for me a goal. I want to do this one right, but I don't want to do this one. After fourth term, you have more freedom
more
of
latitude,
doing
right.
that one. When I started working for the surfing companies in 90s, they loved Holga. And if you would shoot Holga for Mr. Ken, they would kill you. They would give you like an F, and you had to take the class again. But I saw these people liking it. So then I saw the possibility of them. Then I keep moving forward. And I started writing. It's not like element of the Farsi inside that thing's not that much. I like to write Farsi because I think it's a prettier. From right to left, I can put the V as much as I want to go this side of the paper or this side of the negative. And I thought would be interesting for the West. One will shows the shape of alphabet, because here a lot of people don't know about other things. They think it's only one language, and that's English. If they go too fancy, they become French. Yeah, there is a lot of other type of writing is happening. I can show you. I have a book which shows the movement of changing of the Farsi from Sanskrit, then attack of Arabs to Iran. They only 4 words survived. The rest of them, they burned all the books. It's like totally like ISIS. They burned the books. They cut all the Persian buildings. They wanted to change it, So only 4 words survived, which I use that 4 word a lot in my work. Not just to be nationalist. Well, every flower has its own smell, and I wanna show that one.
I hope you're enjoying the show. Thanks again for listening. We've been around since 2006, and I'd like to think that we're going strong, but a lot of it is because of listeners like you who have tuned in every week, who have shared your love of the show with others, and have supported us financially. It makes and continues to make a huge, huge difference, and I can't thank you enough. And if you want to continue to support us, there are so many things that you can do. You can become a Patreon supporter and contribute $5 or more a month, or make a one-time contribution via PayPal, just like listener William Tanser did recently. You can write a review wherever you listen to podcasts, and even better, if you really enjoy an episode, spread the word via an email to a friend, a post on your social networks, or old school word of mouth. All of it is important, and it's invaluable. So thank you again for your support and being a part of the Candid Frame.
Help the Candid Frame to continue bringing you great conversations with some of the world's best photographers. You can do this by supporting our Patreon effort by committing as little as $5 or more a month. When you do this, you not only help us to meet the cost of production, but provide us the time and resources we need to bring you conversations you won't hear anywhere else. Sign up today by visiting patreon.com/The Candid Frame. Thank you.
You work with film. You work with like medium format, a large format. You work with Polaroid. And one of the things that fascinates me about those mediums is not just the way they look. I mean, they have a distinctive look, but it involves a very different physical process, right? In terms of how you handle each camera. And then when it comes into the lab, you're having to do things actively with your body. It's not like you sit at a computer with just your hand and your wrist moving. Mm-hmm. And I think that, and I'm wondering for you, whether the physicality of how you make photographs and how you make your prints, is that a part of where you derive the joy of the process from?
I really can't tell you exactly what it is, but I like large format because I get a chance to shoot only one, especially these days, maybe two. But when I shoot 2.25, I shoot 2, 3,
Okay.
And when I have 35, I shoot more than that one, I like it because on large format, I experienced it. As soon as you put the camera and your cedar comes out here, see that big camera, it takes you seriously.
It has a presence.
Yeah. He has to follow your direction. Then you can manipulate them. When you have a 35, you shoot 3, 4, hopefully getting one which you're looking for. But in large format, you can't do that. You have to be decisive where you want to go.
So when you're making, say, working with large format, and you've got maybe 1 or 2 sheets of paper or whatever material that you're using, a film to shoot, are you very exacting in terms of what you want to get from that shot, or are you sort of a little loosey-goosey because this is just the foundation from which I'm going to build upon?
No. I have idea.
Okay.
All of my portrait, I want to get inside the people's soul. I wanted the moment. Even themselves don't know what is that moment is. When they sit there, then you take your time for a few seconds, and then you have to load the film in the back of the camera, come out of the closet and go here. I want to get in their souls. Their eyes are the gates of my attention. If you look at mostly, I focus only eyes, and I let everything else goes away. And most of the time, technically, I shoot at 5.6. I like that. And I just want to get them.
Yeah.
I want to get the moment which I like them. It's just, then when they look at the pictures, is that me? That gives me such a beautiful pleasure because they ask question about themselves. Is that me? Of course it's you.
Yeah,
but there's a picture of you.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I sat for I'm forgetting the process, but it was one of the old old glass plate.
Yeah,
tintype sort of collodion. So I sat there, and it was really sort of interesting being in front of the camera for the purpose of that photograph, because it really it called on me to just be there, to just be present, which is unlike when I'm photographed with a camera phone, right, where I'm very sort of self-conscious, and everyone is. But when you sit there and you're having to sort of sit there for a while, you can't, it's really hard to put on the face, the pose that you normally put out. You really are called on to be present. And I think what you're speaking about is capturing that sort of unguarded moment where people are sort of as genuine as they can possibly be in front of a camera. And it's easier to do that when you're working with a large camera like that, and there's not this 36, 90, 150 photographs that are being made. So once you have that portrait and you've captured some semblance of that person's soul, when you process the film, you make the print and you look at the print, how long before you start playing with the negative or the print?
Tell you the truth, I didn't time it, but it takes a while, how I'm going to mix this two negative, which negative fits to negative. First of all, it. If you want to shoot it all to come out scene, you have to mark your tripod so everybody sits in the same angle and to mix it. Sometimes I go closer, sometimes I go back, and then try to mix this together later on.
Okay, so they can...
That's totally different process. That becomes a post-production.
Yeah.
Later on you see, it says, oh, God, I can mix this together. Let me see how it looks like. But when I'm shooting it, I'm not planning to mix it. I'm shooting you as you are. Later on, I'll discover something you're feeling or your looks. And also, I don't shoot in 1/25th of the second. My exposures are either 1 second or half a second.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because I want to paint a little bit longer, just 1/25th, 120, 250. It's just like fraction of the second.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because by going with that slower shutter speed, you're also not allowing that one fraction of a second to define who that person is. You're allowing that whole. This is who this person is for that duration of that moment.
Okay.
Even though it's not technically sharp and all those other things we use to subjectively judge a photograph. It's like no, this is how this person exists within this finite period of time. That's fascinating. So what you're talking about here, though, is the fact that you will accumulate work, and sometimes it may be days, weeks, months, maybe even years before you incorporated it with other.
True.
So when you have so much work to sort of pull from, do you sort of like you create something and then you go, oh, I have that image that I shot 3 years ago. Do you have it sitting in your mind, or do you have to sort of go through your contact sheets to search for it? How do you sort of figure out what's what? Because like you said, you're always producing work, and it's hard enough for the computer to figure out where everything is, right?
Yeah, you're right. You got to look for it.
Yeah. So are you pretty organized in terms of where you put stuff?
Hell no. Sorry for bad language. But that's why I like to shoot 8x10. Because I shoot either one or two, and I know where they are at. Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't. But sometimes I look for something else. I found something else. Then I say, oh, wow, this, I forgot about this. Now I can mix this one with this ones. Or I can write this ones, It's just a process, constant process, all the time I'm sitting and walking, I'm thinking photography, how I'm going to do it, where I'm going to do it. Especially the Art Center days, I was really colorist. I wanted to see, I didn't want RGB to tell me what to do or Kodak wants me to do. I always want to move it on. That's why I started bleaching. As you know it, colored film has 3 layers.
Yeah.
I would get rid of the red, cyan. I would get rid of the cyan by bleaching it very carefully, because they're all like microns are stacking together. Right. If you work with it, be patient, you can actually take the cyan layers and out of it. Then you have blue and magenta and blue goes to yellow. Right. Then you have 2 mixed color, and sometimes you have leftover of you couldn't peel it out correctly of that one. Those are all temperatures. When you're printing it, it gives you different shade of the colors. Always they told me, how you get your colors? I just I didn't like Kodak or Fuji's colors. Yeah. I would try to get them a little bit out of what it was. Or you tell me what it would be. And that's why some of my teachers those days, they called me chemist. Kaminsky, chemist, these were all my titles.
You like experimenting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to be able to go forward.
We both teach a lot of students. And sometimes that experimentation is towards a goal. They see someone else has done something interesting, and so they'll experiment because they want to emulate what someone else is doing, and they want to sort of figure it out. You seem to be very contrary to that. You're experimenting, but you're not in search of emulating someone else, as you are trying to create something that mirrors what you have imagined in your head. And for me, that means that you have an intrinsic trust with how you are imagining something, even though you have not seen it reflected in other people's work. Okay? That is a very difficult place to be as an artist, to be confident with that. Because, as you've said, people have looked at your work and they just go, what the hell is Hadi doing? This doesn't fit into the box.
Yes.
And when you are surrounded by people who are trying to fit into the box, and you are sort of struggling as an artist trying to make your way, it is very tempting to say, okay, I can't continue following this because no one likes it, no one's going to pay me for this, so maybe I should start doing more acceptable commercial work. But you stayed very true to that. So how have you been able to stay committed to that voice that you have, to be able to continue doing the work over the period of time that you have? What do you give credit to for that?
To myself. As I told you, I really do believe that every flower is has their own sense. And I always want to be my own. I looked at this. Sometimes people call me Shirin and Nishat, you know, that ladies artist which started writing on the images.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
But she was an original. Before then, they did it. Also, people like in a cave, they draw and they put something else in it. And it didn't bother me. Some people come here to buy things. Oh, that's Shirin Nishat. You know, I don't get bothered with it. And, you know, I actually told Roshi I want to have a show title in, honest to God, I'm not Shirin Nishat. I am myself. Because I do really trust myself. I think I don't want to look like Irving Penn. I don't want to look like all those big cats.
Right.
I want to be just myself as an artist. If I don't sell it, I'm so happy making it. I can't describe you how joyful it is to making it. That you can put the price on it. If they like it, they buy it. If they don't like it, I like to have it.
Yeah.
I have that attitude, and I work hard to become in this one. I don't compromise this. When I was working for Gotcha in 90s, they said, oh, we like Craig Gorman. Can you do that? I said, no, go hire Craig Gorman. You know, not that they're amazing photographers, but, you know, I'm not trying to be amazing. I'm just trying to communicate with you as an artist.
Yeah.
I want to be responsible. I want to be me. I want to stay author, you know. I don't want to come commission. Do you tell me, okay, I'll buy this one, and you just instead of red put that. I can't do it. I tell you the truth. I create my images in total control of myself. If I have a mistake, I don't blame it myself, or you know, oh, what I'm gonna do. I don't like as an artist the money to give me heartbeat. And also extra heartbeat, and also living in Los Angeles is expensive city. You know, you got to make money. Otherwise, you know, how you going to pay these things?
Now, one of the things, it's because of the way that you work and because how much effort and time is involved in it. I'll speak for myself. There's sometimes when I'm working on something, it's taking me a good period of time to do. And I'll get started, I'll be very enthusiastic about the idea. This is just wonderful. And then just the normal obstacles start showing up, right? And it's becoming more difficult to do. And I begin to doubt myself. And there's sometimes I just have to look at it and go, okay, I don't care how bad I'm feeling. I'm just going to push through and just do it. And there are other times when it's just like, this is not going to work, and I just need to redirect that energy to something else. And that could be a really sort of difficult choice to make, because sometimes, you know, you may be tempted to give up on something that you shouldn't, because if you just keep going, it'll pay off. But there are other times where it's just like, it's not going anywhere. And I'm wondering for you, when you've experienced those moments, how you sort of discern and parse when you need to really stay committed and when you just need to sort of just let it go and move on.
You know, I sometimes I make a work in half and I get really tired of it. As you said, I don't know where I'm going with it. I just put them aside and go back to it a month, 2 months later, and I look at it. Then I start working again, continuing it, you know. Usually the second time I finish it.
Okay.
Usually, most of the time, I finish it on the second time and say, I'm tired of this one, I'm going to go this one. You know, as you can see, I have downstairs, I can work on this table. Then I have a dark room upstairs. Those moments are changing, you know, or I'll take a walk, or because that's why I don't like deadlines. When you have a deadline, you get to finish it. Yeah. And then you're not finishing the way you want it, because it's just the finishing is important, not how to finish it.
Yeah, I was working I'm working right now on a fine art project. It's the first time I've ever really done anything, quote unquote, fine art. And I had to come up with a concept. You know, I had to write it down to sort of explain what I'm going for and all this other stuff. And it was really strange to have to explain and put into words something that I had yet to create. It's good for me. It's good for me because it's different, right? And then seeing the work and seeing that it's taking shape along the lines is sort of good. But part of me is kind of like you, is that I don't want to be the definer of the work for the people who come upon it. I don't want it to be so rigidly defined by the concept that I came up with that it reduces people being able to look at it and discover it on their own terms. And it seems like you like that. You want people to discover it and interpret it on their own terms. But in just the nature of the fine art world as it is, that in terms of the gallery owners, the curators, the buyers, they feel like art has to have as rigid a structure in terms of the work as the means by which it's often created. Because photography is so rigid in terms of, shutter speed, aperture. It's like, okay, and then they expect that the work should be in line with that. And I think you are sort of in even though that there's a very technical, exacting process for the creation of the work, that doesn't and shouldn't apply to the way people see and experience the work. And I think that's why it's kind of difficult for you to sort of find it difficult to really embrace the idea of explaining.
Because as soon as I start explaining, they have another question. Then you find out you got to go through whole things. I do believe that the artist shouldn't go after their work and try to explain it what it is. Visual arts is education. You learn more and more as you grow up in the visual arts. The audience or the people, your buyers, they should move on too.
Yeah.
They should, if something is visually pleasant for them, there is no explanation. Explanation is for the writers, or novels, the art, But also, that the old painting, they said if there is no story on a painting, it's just a painting.
Yeah. But I think as long as the artist knows what the story is, everybody else doesn't need to know. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's very true.
It's whatever sort of you needed in order to create the work, and after that,
that's it.
Because sometimes I go, well, what do you think it's about? What does it make you feel?
Yeah.
And then they say,
they're like a drama things.
And then you go, that's good.
Yeah, that's what I told you. I told in one day, in one image, I told 5 different stories. I wish I could record myself, but I knew what I'm doing.
Yeah, because it really doesn't.
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
It does. All 5 of them are correct. All 5 of them are wrong.
Because it's really about whatever you put into it. By the time it's up on the wall, you're done.
I'm done.
It's just like music, right? It is not complete just because there's a CD or an album or a digital file. That song, that album is not complete until there's somebody sitting in a chair with headphones on listening to it.
Maybe a few times.
Yeah, probably a few times. But that's the same thing with a photograph.
Yeah, cinema and music are a huge influence on me. I love music.
Oh, yeah, you get
I have like 10,000 vinyls at home. I carry the what I want.
10,000?
Yeah, something like that. I have like 5,000 CDs, and I hate them now. Then I heard in Japan is really popular CD now. The tape is back, and I thought I should box them and go to Japan and sit next to the Tokyo streets and start selling them because I have really good collections on them. I married to a black woman, and she was an opera singer. And her uncle was a pianist, jazz pianist.
Okay.
And I fell in love with music through her because every morning she had to get up and go on the shower and practice her voice because of the noise. And at first I was a little bit uncomfortable. Then I started loving it. And the musician's life and history of the music in America especially is just fascinates me. It's just American music. Jazz is only American music. We can't do born in America. But, people like Charlie Parker, Alice Coltrane, another giant, leave the shadow of the John Coltrane as another giant, The whole story of him, how the politics of the music, how these musicians are Dolphys. Dolphys' life is tragedy, Eric Dolphys. They thought he's a black man and he was a diabetic. And they thought he's a heroin passed out.
Yeah.
So then they killed this young man, and he was amazing, talented, or Menges, or even Struggle of the Nina Simone, inspired me. They blacklisted her, and the Flips came out from Netherlands, started publishing her music. It's just like every time I listen to her voice, I see history. I see a story on him. I feel it. It gives me goosebumps how they lived as an artist in the society, which enjoyed their music but never respect them as much as they deserve it to.
Do you sometimes feel that to some degree yourself?
Yes, so
How?
I connect them because I don't want to talk about racism, but I'm a brown man and I lived in America. And I suffered a lot emotionally, for various reasons. I don't want to go back to it and explain it. Yes, I do see it, not on that degree,
Yeah.
I remember when you listen to Nina Simone, a song called Goddamn Mississippi.
Yeah, Mississippi Goddamn, yeah.
Mississippi Goddamn, it just gives you goosebumps.
Mm-hmm.
Or she starts live. I forgot the song's title in Carnegie Halls with this piano. It's just a slave march. Boom, boom, boom. Those are like inspires me. I said, "Wow, how giant they were, how gifted they were for mankind." And never was appreciated. You know that, all the history of the jazz, Parker and those cats, they would give him heroin sold purposely. Or the story of the crack in 80s, and the whole, how these things are created next to each other. It makes me stronger as an artist and keep doing it. Even, don't feel like a direction. I don't need direction.
I'm glad you brought up those musicians because it makes what you are doing in your photographs make just that much more sense. Because those musicians, considering all, not just the challenges they faced as, black people or women in whatever period of time that they were in, but that they took all of that experience and that it found its way into their work. That whether it was their voice, whether it was the saxophone, whether it was a set of drums, that they were like sort of their circulatory system, their nerve endings became part and parcel of whatever they were using. And it seems like that is the same thing for you. You are kind of like a jazz artist, but you're using photographs. And you are, instead of telling stories with lyrics and notes, you're doing it with photographs, with oils and pencils and whatever you're using in order to sort of massage it. That sort of spontaneity is what you are going for in that work.
True.
Because I look at it, and even though I know there's some intentionality behind all of your pictures, there is still a feeling of spontaneity that is normally inherent just to a straight photograph, but that you sort of take all this other stuff and you're like going, this is still a spontaneous piece of work, even though it may take you 20 hours to finish it. Is that?
Yeah, it is totally true. And I work on the moment, at the time I feel it, because artists has to represent their time they're living in it. That's why we listen to Nina Simone. You feel the time of the suffering of the 60s, and look at the 70s music. It's just a little bit less, than 70s music is amazing. They all represent their time. I think that's why we are here through the universe, to sort of like paint that one as an artist, individuality, so you can feel the time through his or her eyes or her voice or her work.
Well, Hadi, my last question that I ask each guest is I ask them to recommend another photographer for our listeners to discover and explore on their own. And it can be anyone, someone you've long admired or someone you've recently discovered. So who would that photographer be and why?
Cartier Bresson.
Okay, why?
Because he shot with a 50mm lens, and he thought if you use other kind of lens and you are really manipulating the reality, If you like it, go forward. If you don't like it, go backward. And as you see it, he for me, starting as a street photographer, he was my model. I look at that, and I loved a lot. I'm like, other one is Joseph Koudelka.
Oh, Koudelka, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love his work, especially on the gypsies. Sometimes, I'm talking to you, I get goosebumps of his images looking at it. There is another French photographer, I forgot, Kalahari. He did some beautiful work. I have his work, but at this moment, I don't know where I put it. He lived in Moscow for 4 years, and he's a French photographer, and he shot a lot of addict people, the underground people. And his colors, his descriptions is just amazing. Jesus, I wish I could remember.
Well, sure, we'll find it. But Hadi, thank you so much for having me over.
My pleasure, Saul. I hope.
Thanks to Hadi for sharing his time and story with us. A solo exhibition of Hadi's work will be on display next month on October 6th at the Space for Advocacy in Los Angeles, where a film on his life and career will also debut. You can find out more in the links in the show notes. And we still have spots available for my workshop in Tokyo, Japan in December. I'm holding it in collaboration with photographer George Nobechi, a former guest of the show. He has been offering some amazing experiences with other photographers, including Sam Abel, Arthur Meyerson, and Greg Gorman. So I'm very humbled to be included in such company. And you can find out more about my workshop and the others he offers by visiting NobechiCreatives.com. And check out my YouTube channel, where I offer comments and photography submitted by TCF listeners who contribute to the Candid Frame Flickr pool. Check out the TCF Flickr pool and our YouTube channel by clicking on the link in the show notes and the website. My latest book, Making Photographs, Developing a Personal Visual Workflow, is now available. And as I said last week, it's now available in Europe in German. So if you're interested in buying it in German, it's available out there now. But if you're interested in the English version, you can purchase it today and receive 40% off the list price when you order it from the Rocky Nook website. Use the promo code Perello40 at checkout to take advantage of the discount. And you can receive 3 free copies of my previously published ebooks by signing up for the Candid Frame mailing list, where I share my thoughts about life, photography, and keep you updated on TCF events. Not all episodes may be available on your podcaster app of choice. So to download, listen, and share any and all episodes of the Candid Frame, download the TCF app for Apple iOS and Android. And because of your support, it's free. The Candid Frame's audio engineer is Martin Taylor, who you can find at theothermartintaylor.com. The show's senior producer is Cynthia Parker, and our music is from Kevin MacLeod, whose royalty-free music can be found at incompetech.com. And this is Ibarionex, and this is Ibarionex, and this is The Candid Frame.